The founding of Tenochtitlan reflects the gathering of a highly skilled and knowledgeable people who recognize significance in both the sacred and the natural world. The image of an eagle standing upon a nopal cactus rising from rocky ground, preserved in Mexica tradition and recorded in codices, marks a place understood as profoundly meaningful, a moment where spiritual guidance and environmental awareness and human intention came together. As the story is told today, the eagle holds a serpent. Yet, when we look at the earliest Mexica codices, the eagle stands alone upon the stone emerging from the waters of the lake. Rather than emphasizing movement or uncertainty, this moment speaks to recognition, the identification of a place of power, stability, and possibility by people who possess deep knowledge of land, water, and life. The Nahuatl name itself, Tenochtitlan, meaning place of the nopal rising from rocky ground, suggests the presence of a natural raised feature within the shallow waters of Lake Texcoco. A nopal cactus cannot grow submerged. It requires stable ground. Likewise, raptors, such as golden eagles, select elevated and secure perches. These ecological realities indicate that the Mexica encountered a small rocky island or exposed mound already emerging from the lake, a natural anchor point signaling stability, life, and possibility. Among their most remarkable innovations were the Chinampas, carefully constructed raised agricultural fields that transformed shallow lake beds into fertile land. Through layered vegetation, sediment management, and canal design, the Mexica extended the natural island outward, creating not only food security, but ecological balance. Over time, causeways, canals, and chinampa systems expanded this modest natural foothold into one of the most sophisticated urban environments in the indigenous Americas. The image of an eagle upon a nopal cactus is widely recognized today, often shown with a serpent held in the bird's talons. Within Mexica understanding, serpents were powerful sacred beings connected to transformation, earth forces, fertility, knowledge, and cosmic balance. Symbols of movement between sky, earth, and water. Over time, different retellings highlighted certain meanings more than others, shaping how the image is commonly recognized today. Returning to indigenous perspectives allows us to see the symbol as an expression of balance and relationship with the living world, where environment, spirit, and observation come together. Chinampas did not originate solely with Tenochtitlan. Long before the Mexica established their city, wetland farming was practiced throughout the basin of Mexico, particularly in regions such as Xochimilco and Chalco. Communities had already learned how to live with shallow lake waters, soft lake bed soils, and canals. Calm waters, typically 2 to 4 feet deep, allowed workers to stand while supporting aquatic life beneath the surface. Nutrient-rich mud, clay, and organic matter rested below, while reeds and aquatic plants stabilized the environment. Gentle water movement prevented erosion, creating conditions where land and water could exist together rather than apart. From this living landscape, shaped by water and time, a remarkable form of agriculture began to rise, not by separating from nature, but by working within it. Now, we step into one of the greatest innovations of Tenochtitlan, the Chinampas, often called floating gardens. Yet, they did not float. This cross-section illustrates the relationship between the natural island slope and the constructed chinampa. The land transitions gradually beneath the surface of the lake, forming a submerged slope rather than an abrupt shoreline. The chinampa is securely anchored into the lake bed. Large wooden posts were driven deep into the sediment, establishing a stable framework. Smaller stakes were added in between the anchor posts to create a retaining wall that held layers of lake, mud, vegetation, and organic matter in place. These were not temporary platforms. They were carefully engineered agricultural extensions of the land, built with precision, ecological understanding, and long-term vision. In this second schematic, a figure stands at the base of the submerged slope to provide scale. The water reaches approximately waist height, demonstrating the shallow depth along the shoreline. This was a controlled, productive environment, ideal for agricultural construction. The anchoring posts rise from the lake bed to the midsection and chest height of the figure, emphasizing both depth and structural integrity. The Chinampa system reflects advanced hydrological knowledge and a sophisticated understanding of landscape engineering. They were carefully engineered agricultural islands built through knowledge, patience, and collective labor. Shown here is a cross-sectional schematic of the lake, illustrating the lake bed and water depth. This cutaway view enables a detailed examination of the construction process, demonstrating how the Chinampa emerged layer by layer from the aquatic landscape. Builders began by marking the length and width of the Chinampa using substantial wooden corner posts driven into the shallow lake bed. These primary stakes established the rectangular boundaries of the Chinampa. They determined its final dimensions before any fill was added. Each corner post measured approximately 6 to 13 feet in total length and 4 to 8 inches in diameter. Once positioned, they were driven 3 to 6 feet down into the soft lake sediment to create a stable foundation. The visible portion above water represented only a fraction of the stake's total length. Most of its strength lay beneath the surface. After the corner posts defined the frame, thinner interior stakes, measured approximately 6 to 13 feet, were driven into the lake bed between the primary posts. These secondary stakes were narrower in diameter of 2 to 4 inches and placed at regular intervals along the perimeter. Their purpose was to reinforce the boundary walls that would later contain layers of vegetation and lake sediment. While this illustration shows a simplified number of interior stakes, for clarity, the actual construction would have included many more placed closely together to strengthen the structure and retain fill material. The density of these stakes increased the overall rigidity of the Chinampa frame before the layered fill was introduced. Chinampas commonly extended 200 to 300 feet in length, the width ranging from 15 to 30 feet. Narrow canals, typically 6 to 15 feet wide, separated each field, creating a grid of agricultural plots accessible by canoe. After the vertical stakes were secured, flexible marsh reeds and young willow branches were threaded horizontally between them. Each strand was passed in and out along the row of posts, interlacing with the stakes to create a woven retaining wall. The material was pliable enough to bend, yet strong enough to form a firm, structured barrier once layered together. In practice, the weaving would have been tight enough to provide structural stability and retain sediment while still remaining permeable. Water moved slowly through the vegetative wall, supporting natural nutrient exchange without allowing the layered fill to wash away. In this illustration, the spacing between the woven reeds is intentionally shown slightly wider than it would have been in full construction. This allows the viewer to see how the weaving was constructed and how it aligns with the internal layers shown in the adjacent cross-section. The first layer inside the retaining wall consisted of thick bundles of aquatic vegetation gathered from the lake margins. Builders used a mixture of tulle, reeds, cattails, rushes, and other marsh plants native to the basin. These materials were laid densely across the lake bed, forming a vegetative base approximately 2 feet thick. This foundational layer acted as a natural filtration mattress, slowing water movement and capturing fine sediment as the chinampa was gradually built upward. Once the foundational vegetation layer was in place, workers began dredging nutrient-rich sediment from the surrounding lake bed. Using wooden tools, they gathered fine silt and organic mud that had accumulated naturally along the canal floor. This fertile lake sediment was then placed inside the woven retaining wall, forming a dense layer approximately 2 feet thick above the vegetation base. The weight of the mud compressed the lower plant material, stabilizing the structure and beginning the transformation from marsh enclosure to raised agricultural field. Along the edges, builders planted aweshalt trees, from the Nahuatl word meaning water willow. Over time, these trees developed deep root systems that anchored the chinampa, stabilized the soil, and helped protect the edges from erosion. Above the primary mud layer, builders added a secondary band of marsh vegetation approximately 1 to 1.5 feet thick. As this organic material decomposed, it helped break up dense clay, improve soil texture, and prevent hard compaction. The decaying plant fibers created air pockets within the sediment, gradually transforming thick lake mud into workable agricultural soil. This layer also enriched the developing field. As the vegetation broke down, it released nutrients, increased organic content, and supported microbial activity, all of which enhanced long-term fertility. The plant fibers helped retain moisture and maintain a more stable growing environment within the raised bed. Structurally, this organic layer acted as a transitional buffer between the compacted sediment below and the final planting soil above, softening the shift between layers and strengthening the overall profile of the chinampa. The final layer consisted of fertile planting soil formed from reworked lake sediment blended with decomposed organic material. This upper surface was lighter and more workable than dense mud below. Enriched by layers of decaying vegetation, it developed into a dark, nutrient-rich loam capable of sustaining intensive agriculture. Over time, farmers renewed the land by dredging nutrient-rich sediment from the surrounding canals and spreading it across the surface. Through this continual integration of lake sediment, organic matter, and attentive maintenance, the chinampa evolved into a self-renewing agricultural system capable of sustaining multiple harvests each year. What emerged was more than farmland. It was a living system where land, water, and community moved together in balance. It was about relationship, understanding the rhythm of water, soil, and life itself. The Chinampas were not simply fields, they were expressions of knowledge carried across generations. The footage you are watching now is from Xochimilco in Mexico City. For countless years, the people of Tenochtitlan lived within a carefully engineered lake system. Chinampas absorbed overflow, canals carried water through the land, and great dikes helped regulate the lakes. Nearby cities like Xochimilco thrived as part of this balanced water world. When outside colonial authorities took control of the valley in the 1500s, the city was rebuilt according to different ideas about water and land. After devastating floods in the 1600s, they began draining the lakes themselves. Over the following centuries, canals were filled, wetlands disappeared, and the waters of the valley were redirected away. The Great Lakes cities, including Xochimilco, that surrounded Tenochtitlan, eventually became part of the vast metropolis now known as Mexico City. But the valley remains a natural basin surrounded by mountains. Without the lakes and waterways that once managed the flow of water, heavy rains now have far fewer places to go, which is why flooding still occurs in the city today. The canals of Xochimilco and Mexico City remain one of the last living places where this remarkable Chinampa agricultural system still survives. This has been a Blue Wolf production.